Hello, good game. Welcome back, ghouls and goblins. I hope you're all having a magical day. Thank you so much for taking the time to support the channel. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty spoilers. If you've missed part 1, check it out. I'll have the link pinned in the comment below. Not only do we go over the spoilers, but we also talk about and explain in depth the new mechanics that you're definitely going to want to learn about. So that video is pinned in the comments below. Today, we're continuing through the spoilers. We have a ton of cards to talk about and some really interesting choices by the R&D department, which we'll discuss in today's video, right? So if you enjoy this style of content and just want to support the channel, I guess, in general, leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let's take a look at some of these new Kamigawa Neon Dynasty spoilers. All right, here we are. We left off with Tameo Completed Sage, which has Phyrexian mana. This is so crazy, paying life for it. And other Phyrexians in the set as well. Woof. So mind absolutely exploded. And that's all in that last video, like I've been teasing, pinned in the comments below. Moving on now to the new spoilers here. And we've got a doozy right out of the gate. Mirror Box for 3 mana and Artifact. The legendary rule doesn't apply to permanents you control. Each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1, and each non-token creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with the same name as that creature. So if you have 2 legendaries out, they're going to receive +2/+2. Woof. That's crazy. And then if you get 3 of them out, they're going to receive +2/+2 plus that +1, so they'll receive +3/+3, which is... It's pretty ridiculous. They are non-token, so they have to be organic copies. And the Mirror Box itself is a non-legendary. It wouldn't matter if it was. So I'm curious to, why wasn't itself a legendary, since it nullifies that effect anyways. However, imagine how terrible a game would be with multiple copies of the Meat Hook in play at one time. And that's just the start of it. It gets far worse than that, you guys. That's a long rabbit hole to dive into. And Holy Toledo's, the Mirror Box is definitely going to be one of those cards that's like, oh, I am now forced to run, even in best of 1, artifact removal. Speaking of that, though, even if you're trying to interact with it, we could be interacting with it ourselves. Obviously, it is an artifact, so things like Deadly Dispute or even maybe the Scrapped Welder. This is a 3-drop, 3/3 Goblin Artificer. We can tap it at instant speed, which is fantastic. Sacrifice an artifact with mana value X. Return target artifact card with mana value less than X, right? Not equal to. So, sacrifice for 4. You bring something back for 3, right? Mirror Box. Anywho, that artifact is going to gain haste until the end of turn if it happens to be a creature, which I do think will be something that we'll dive into a little bit further. Moving on to Invoke Despair. This is a 5-drop, 4 black mana card. So, probably only going in mono black decks. Sorcery speed. Target opponent sacrifices a creature. If they can't, they lose 2 life. You draw a card. Then repeat this process for an enchantment and a planeswalker. So, removing up to 3 things, not too bad. If they can't, they're going to be losing 2 life and you draw a card. So, worst case scenario, they will lose 6 life and you'll draw 3 cards for 5 mana. That's actually pretty good. And, maybe we can copy this spell. Don't even say it. I know. That's going to get pretty gross. But, decent, a little expensive. It's good to see. Aki Warpaint for 1, an enchantment or enchant artifact or creature. So similar to a Ruin, right? A Ruin could enchant an artifact, which was quite decent. Or I guess it could enchant an equipment. The runes could enchant things that weren't creatures, though. You know what I mean. And as long as an enchanted permanent is a creature, it's going to get +2/+1. So, it's kind of a bummer. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. So this is actually, now that I kind of break this down, because why, if, only the creature gets +2/+1, the artifact doesn't. So why would you want to put it on an artifact or creature? And it's so that it doesn't drop when the new artifact equipment creatures transform, right? Because we do have those. So this would remain equipped. Confusing, but when we think it through, that's what it's doing. Moving on to a new rare lands. Every set with these rare lands. Rest in peace, our wild cards. Sokenzan, Crucible of Defiance. This is a legendary land, right? So, you know, maybe only running 2 copies of it in our deck. Oh, but wait, we can discard it. So now you're running 4 copies of it. And discarding it for 4, which is what channel means. And then we'll get an additional trigger out of that. Each channel ability is a little bit different. That does require the discard of that card. So creating 2 1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens, they gain haste until the end of turn. This ability will cost 1 less to cast, or activate, I should say, for each legendary creature that we control. That's really good, right? So, you know, you have 3 legendaries in play, which is unlikely, but you never know. Mirbox. And then you could just be discarding this for literally 1 to create 2 1/1s with haste. You know, that's a fair amount of pressure. Moving on, the Befriending the Moths for 4 mana. This is an enchantment saga. For the first 2 clicks of it, target creature you control gets +1/+1, gains flying just until the end of turn. Right? That's, you know, it's mediocre. It goes away. It's not a lasting effect. And then it'll transform on that 3rd trigger into the Imperial Moth, just as a 2/4 with flying. So, you know, it's 4 to even get in play. Meh, not that great. Making up for it, however, is Kodama of the West Tree. I think this is the best card we've seen so far. For 3 mana, a 3/3 with reach. Modified creatures you control have trample. So modifications consist of any counters, whether they be poison counters, -1 counters, +1 counters, death touch, first strike counters, just counters, right? Also, auras and equipment will make a creature modified. So modified creatures we have control have trample, and then whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a basic land card, put it into the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. I'm going to say it because, you know, Belladar's Retreat, anyone? You're getting the +1/+1 counters on land ETB. That makes all of your creatures modified, and you can also create new creatures, the cats, right? And then they're going to deal combat damage to the player, and that combat damage is going to pull more lands into the battlefield, and then you're going to make more cats, you're going to make more +1/+1 counters. Holy Toledos. And not to mention, it's a 3-drop. And then Felidar Retreat is a 4-drop. This is fantastic. This is so good. So good, so good, so good. Putting multiple, you know, because whenever a modified creature, this is going to trigger for each creature, I'm almost positive. So fantastic. They're going to have trample, so they're definitely dealing combat damage. I can't get over it. That might be the first deck I make. We'll see. We'll see. Moving on. The Gloom Shrieker. This is a enchantment creature, cat beast with menace, a 2/1 for 3. Whenever it enters the battlefield, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, and if it would die, exile it instead. I think that's fairly good. You know, just grabbing something right from your graveyard to your hand. It's a 2/1 with menace. I'll allow it. Backing up, backing up. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where we are. We're in trouble, folks. Okay, here we are. Boom! Okay, now one of the worst cards in the set, the March of Reckless Joy, for 1 red mana plus X at instant speed, and this is the confusing part. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may exile any number of red cards from your hand. This does not include basic lands. These lands that are red are not red cards. This is very sad. The spell will cost 2 less to cast for each red card exiled this way. So, you know, you can still dump your mana into this like a normal person, but you really want to get that additional value, right? But why would you be discarding cards for a chance to draw land, right? Why would you discard a permanent card or a spell or sorcery, something that has value definitely for, you know, a 1 in 4 with a land or something, right? So, and then, you know, exile the top X cards of your library. You may play up to 2 of them until your next turn, right? So, instant speed until the end of your next turn. Sorry, not until the end of your next turn, until your next turn. So why would you cast this on your opponent's end step? Like, it would have to be a deck filled with instant speeds, right? You'd have to cast this during their turn and then fire off more instant speed spells, right? If they were sorcery speed spells, if they were creatures, even if they were land, you know, they were just throwing them away. So, you know, that's the only place this works, I think, is within a burn deck that is focused on instant speed. Or maybe it's an Izzet deck, I don't know. But like a deck solely focused on instant speed interaction. Because otherwise, it's not a great card, I don't think. So, kind of on the fence, but if I were to try to mitigate that terrible card and make it good, that's how I would try to do it. Anywho, backing out of this. Please don't mess us up each time. Take me to where we were. Yes. Moving on. And now, in complete opposites of this confusing red card, we've got March of Otherworldly Light. For 1 white plus X, instant speed as well. Is an additional cost to cast this spell. You may exile any number of white cards from your hand. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. And you get to exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment with mana value X or less. This is super good. All of the new dragons that are mythic have leave the battlefield or LTB effects, death effects. I guess they're not leave the battlefield because it's still going to be leaving the battlefield. But it will not be dying. We're going to be sending it to the Shadow Realm, going straight to exile. And I think this Otherworldly Light is fantastic. You're going to be seeing that all over the place. Moving on now to some actually really, really good common and uncommon cards. First up, the Geothermal Kami. For 4 mana, a 4/3. When it enters the battlefield, you may return an enchantment you control to its owner's hand if you do gain 3 life. So, Binding of the Old Gods, any saga really, but Binding is like, you're going to destroy a permanent, and then you're going to get a land, and then you bounce it back to your hand and replay and repeat. Sign me up. I think that's very good. And Binding is an uncommon, so that could be the beginning of a free-to-play deck. Moonsnare Prototype for 1, an artifact. We can tap it to tap an untapped artifact or creature that we control, right? So it's a double tap, not great, but sometimes there's clues around that can now act as mana, which is really cool. We're going to add a generic mana to our pool, and then we can channel it, which means discarding it for 5. Discard the prototype, return target non-land permanent to the top or bottom of its owner's library, which is pretty cool. I mean, most times it'll probably go right to the top, and then that's what they draw, and it's right back in play again. But if we've learned anything, bouncing permanents is a great way to gain tempo. And then the Sokenzarn Smelter for 2 at the beginning of your combat. You may pay 1 and sacrifice an artifact. If you do, create a 3/1 red construct artifact creature token with haste. Woof. I think this is very good. It's non-legendary. You can stack these, be sacrificing artifacts to make a bunch of 3/1s. And, that's a good uncommon card. I really like that. Moving on to the Bronze Plate Boar for 3. This is an artifact creature equipment boar. So it's an artifact, it's a creature, and in it's an equipment, which is pretty cool. I think most equipments are artifacts, though. Correct? I think they all are, aren't they? Anywho, it's a 3/2 with trample. An equipped creature will receive +3/+2 and gain trample as well. Reconfigure, which means you can either equip it to a creature or de-equip it in general. The de-equip would make it a creature. Again, de-equip makes it into an equipment. It is no longer a creature, right? So you can kind of dodge some stuff here. However, it's only at sorcery speed. So, I don't know how much dodging you'll be doing there. And it's costing 5, which is pretty expensive. In this scenario, not to say that Reconfigure is bad. This is just like, how are you going to make that work for 5, right? Please, enlighten me. Swift Hover Bike. Okay, so now this is cool, right? Woof. Flash spell, 2/2, with flying, pretty decent. And whenever it enters the battlefield, tap up to 1 target creature, crew 1. Oh, the crew sucks. The crew sucks. The ETB tap is sick. The flash is amazing. Crew is not the best, but it's definitely not the worst. I think this is semi-playable. It is also an artifact, which we can receive value from later on, right? It's there. We'll see. It's a free-to-play card, right? Backing up here, hopefully, to where we were. Beautiful. Talking about the Leech Gauntlet now. For 2 mana, artifact creature, equipment Leech, a 2/2 with lifelink. Equipped creature has lifelink, and we can reconfigure it for 4. So again, this is pretty expensive to reconfigure. 2/2 for 2 with lifelink. There's nothing special here, really, right? This is all things that we're used to, I think. The Tatsunari Toad Rider for 3. This is fairly interesting. Legendary creature, Human Ninja. 3/3, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, if you don't control a creature named Kimmy, Create Kami, a legendary 3/3 black and green frog creature token with whenever you cast an enchantment spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. I do believe the Meat Hook is an enchantment spell. Gulp. So that's going to be great. We also can pay 2 with a blue or green mana, right? So this is either in a Sultai build, it could be in a Golgari build, it could be in a Dimir build, right? Either of those color combinations, or, just mono black with treasures, of course. It and target frog you control cannot be blocked this turn except by creatures with flying and or reach, which is, it's a thing. It's decent. That might get you the win, especially if you're playing limited for sure. Kappa Tech Wrecker for 2. 1/3 with Ninjutsu for 2. Ninjutsu means that you can cast it from your hand for that mana value by revealing it if there is an unblocked creature attacking to deal combat damage, about to deal combat damage, in which case you can kind of put that creature back to your hand and play this one in its place. When it enters the battlefield, it will do so with a death touch counter on it. Fairly decent. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, which it should because of the ninjutsu, you can remove that death touch counter from it to destroy, well, not even destroy, exile target artifact or enchantment that player controls. So, it's decent. There's a lot of artifacts and enchantments, and this is going to be a good way to help mitigate those. Moving on for 4, some pretty decent removal. Assassin's Color Ink. Instant speed, and if you control an artifact, this spell costs 1 less to cast, and the same goes for an enchantment, right? So, potentially, if we control both an artifact and enchantment, reducing the Assassin's Color Ink by 2 to destroy at instant speed target creature or planeswalker, which is absolutely fantastic as far as I'm concerned. Moving on back through the fury that is these new cards. I'm actually going to have to click into these too. Oh my lord. The Futurist Agent. This is a human ninja, 3/4 for 4. As long as Futurist Agent is tapped, it is a human citizen with basic power and toughness 1/1. It cannot be blocked. You can pay 3 to untap it. So this is actually fairly interesting. The fact that it will attack unblocked as a 1/1 as soon as it's tapped indicates that your opponent will not be able to block it, and you can use it to trigger ninjutsu from your hand, right? And if you're not doing that, you can pay 3 to untap it to switch its power and toughness back to 3/4 to get that combat damage in like you want. It's just a little expensive is the thing for 4 mana. All right, moving forward. The Malicious Malfunction, sorcery speed for 3. All creatures get -2/-2 until the end of turn. If a creature would die this turn, exile it instead. This is fantastic. Similar to Cry of the Carnarium. Very, very good. Getting the exile on everything is fantastic. Beep, beep, boop. Moving onwards and upwards to the Whole Shot Mechanic. Now, this is an interesting card that I do think has value. We've just not seen with what yet, at least in Standard. For 1, it's a 2/1 artifact creature, Fox Pilot. And Hot Shot Mechanic crews vehicles as though its power were 2 greater. So you can crew something for 4 with 1 mana. That's fairly decent. I really do like that. And very playable, at least within Historic. And we're going to see if there's any more goodies here available for it in Standard. Moving on, we have the Rebel Outlaw for 2. It's going to get +2/+0 for each other modified creature you control. And, maybe this goes good with the tree, right? Grabbing Trample. It could be a Naya, white, green, and red. It's going to be a big creature. It would get +2 a whole bunch. It would have Trample, which is decent, right? So I don't know. It's a good card. Again, it's budget as well, which is nice to see. So I think that could probably be a core card within a free-to-play build. The very opposite of free-to-play, Junji the Midnight Sky. Now, we talked about Exile being really important because of all of these new mythic dragons. For 5 mana, it's a 5/5 with flying and menace. So definitely something that you would want to deal with just organically. However, it gets far worse because when it dies, you get to choose one. Each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life. Well, there goes the rest of your hand. You can also put target non-dragon creature card from your graveyard. From a graveyard, not even your own. Woof, be careful what you put in your grave. Onto the battlefield under your control. You're going to lose 2 life for the interaction. And, if you destroy their best creature and then your Midnight Sky dies, then you take their best creature. Oh, yeah. Sign me up. I'd also like to be signed up for Lizard Blades for 2. This is a 1/1 artifact creature, Equipment Lizard. with double strike. Equipped creature has double strike, reconfigure for 2. So we see this reconfigure cost a lot lower than a lot of the other cards, and this gives me hope that we'll see other playable reconfigure cards, and it'll actually be a mechanic that we get to utilize. Double strike is amazing. It's like a baby Embercleave, you know what I mean? 2 little baby Embercleaves. Aha! It should give quadruple strike. Anywho, the Runaway Trash bot, shout out to Andy, the Trash Man, for 3, a 0/4 with Trample, artifact creature construct, and whenever, it will just, in general, receive +1/+0 for each artifact and or enchantment in our graveyard, which is pretty decent. Then we have the Twin Shot Sniper for 4, a 2/3 with reach, artifact creature Goblin Archer. Whenever it enters the battlefield, it'll deal 2 damage to any target. We can channel it for 2 to deal 2 damage to any target there as well, and that's a good uncommon card, right? That is playable. Azari Captain for 5, maybe not too playable. A 4/3 with haste at least, and whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, it gets +1/+0 until the end of turn for each samurai or warrior you control. Why does it need haste if it's buffing up a single attacker that would attack, without summoning sickness beforehand? Or you just have a whole field of creatures not doing anything until this enters? But I just don't understand. Maybe it's good. Probably just a decent limited card. Invoke Calamity. Now we're going to get goofy here for a little bit. For 5 mana, instant speed, you may cast up to 2 instant and or sorcery spells with total mana value 6 or less from your graveyard and or hand without paying their mana cost. If those spells would be put into the graveyard, exile them instead. We will also exile Invoke Calamity, which is a good sign. I think this is pretty goofy. If you're copying it a bunch, woof. And on that note, do the effects combine or do they remain separate? So will we be casting 4 with 12 or less, or will it be 2 with 6 or less and another 2 with 6 or less, right? Are they the effects separated or are they joined? I assume they would be separated as they trigger on the stack. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would be separate on the stack. However, copying this card, much like the black version, if you copy that, it's like really, really, really bad for your opponent. So I like this spell, and it's a way to, at instant speed, cast sorcery spells. Right? So it gets really exciting. Moving on, we do have Naomi, Pillar of the Order for 5. This is a 4/4, and whenever Naomi, Pillar of Order enters the battlefield or attacks, if you control an artifact and an enchantment, create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with vigilance. So we'd really want to have those artifact and enchantment creatures available, and a big board goes home the fastest. Tempered in Solitude for 2, an enchantment, and whenever a creature you control attacks alone, you may exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card this turn. It's all right. I don't think it's great. Reminds me maybe of a tempo deck where you only have that one creature. Bamboo Grove Archer for 2. This is a 3/3 defender with reach. Woof. You can channel it for 5 to destroy target creature with flying. I do not mind this card. Definitely not standard material, but it's going to be fantastic in limited for sure. Banishing Slash for 2 white mana, sorcery speed, to destroy target artifact, enchantment, or tapped creature. Then if you control an artifact and an enchantment, create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with vigilance. So, we're talking about casting things at instant speed that are sorcery spells, right? This is going to destroy one of their tapped creatures that decides to attack you. It's going to hopefully make a 2/2 that can destroy another one of their creatures that has decided to attack you. And that's only for one of the spells in which you'll get to cast 2 of. So you still have 4 remaining mana to utilize if we're running that style of deck. The Lion Sash for 2 mana. This is a 1/1 artifact creature, Equipment Cat. We can pay 1 to exile a target card from a graveyard. This is fantastic. Instant speed, boom, 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 boom. Repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. Sink all of your mana into it. If this card was a permanent card, put a +1/+1 counter on the Lion Sash. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on the Sash, right? They just kind of, instead, I don't know why. It's just a weird way of wording it, I guess. Reconfigure for 2. So it's also playable, which is nice. Blood on the Snow, take a hike. Your days are done here. Lion Sash is going to definitely mitigate people's graveyards to the best of its ability. And then finally, our last card of today's video, the Arm Guard Familiar for 2. This is a 2/1 with Ward 2. Equipped creature gets +2/+1 and has Ward 2 as well. Reconfigure for 4, right? Equipment, beast, artifact, creature. And let's give ourselves a refresh, and maybe we get one more if we're lucky. No, sorry, Bob. So we talked about a lot of really cool cards today. What was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. I think Invoke Calamity is fantastic. I really like Lizard Blades as well. Anything with Double Strike gets me going, right? The removal was nice. March of Otherworldly Light is absolutely busted. I think people may underestimate this card if it's an instant speed-based deck. Maybe a combo deck could use this quite successfully. We'll have to wait and see. And then, without a doubt, my favorite card was Kodama of the West Tree. Feladar's Retreat. Oh, it's going to be fantastic. The land is neat, but it's not that. And then the mirror box is pretty cool as well. Not to mention Invoke Despair again. If you're kind of copying these heavy cost spells, that's going to be pretty cool. And I imagine we're going to see one within white. We're going to see one within blue, one within green as well. If it's black and red, I imagine those other colors will be filled in with some really powerful spells, which is cool to see. So that is all I have for today. Oh, wait, it's card of the day. Which card should we do? I really don't know. Let's pull it right off the top here. Something that I don't think we've done. Boo-ba-da-boo-boo-boo. Oh, come on, camera. You can do it. What if I get right up and personal? Oh, the focus is brutal here. There we go. Jason Mirror Mage. Took long enough. This is a legendary planeswalker for 3, 4 loyalty. Kicker for an additional 2, which would be 5 mana total. When Jace, the Mirror Mage, enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create a copy of it. No, I can't read it anymore. No. Oh, man. Yep. Create a copy of it. It is starting loyalty is 1, +1, scry 2, and then 0. Draw a card, reveal it. Remove any number of loyalty counters equal to that card's converted mana cost from Jace, which is pretty cool. So, sorry about the glare. Maybe we should just hold it here. That seems to work a lot better. The sleeves are just such high quality. So shiny. Thanks for watching, you guys. I hope you have a magical day. Thank you a million times over. Other spoiler video in the pinned comments if you missed out. Make sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you soon in the next.